An old school rock diorama to represent the Barren moon from the Vader Kenobi fight. If you want to see how this is made, well, just stick around. You're watching Metamorphic Customs. Now let's get started here. So we're obviously using some XPS foam, which I've cut a base, you can see in the bottom there, and multiple different slabs. The base at the bottom I've cut to the size of my D12, but you can cut it to any size. And the slabs are just different slabs I'll use to build up what will eventually be the rock base. I've got long vertical slabs, plus a couple of squares here and there. You'll see me use them. I'll glue the slabs using hot glue. The best glue is always styrene glue, but I'm impatient, so I use hot glue. Once I've got all the vertical slabs glued together, I'll use a brass rod to stabilize it. I don't really need it, but just to be safe. Then I'll use, again, hot glue, as I'll use throughout this entire process. I'll do the same thing. I'll keep adding on the slabs just to more or less block this out, literally, and then I'll come in later and cut it. This is what it looks like once I've blocked it out and glued all these different slabs down. That's the overall shape. Now quickly change angles here. I'll be using this tool for the first time. It's a hot foam knife. It works really well, but creates a lot of foam smoke. So make sure you're seated outside or next to a window, and make sure you're using one of these masks here to protect your breathing and your lungs. Very, very important. And the point is to cut out what is the rock pillars here that you'll ultimately see in the final product. I cut most of the major shapes out with this hot knife, and then I'll go back in later with my hobby knife, not the hot knife, but just the hobby knife, and do the finishing touches. But starting with the hot knife makes it a lot easier. As you can see, there's a lot of smoke in that scene. Definitely do this outside or next to a window, and again, I have to mention it, wear a mask. Very, very important. This is what it looks like after I've gone at it with the hot knife. Pretty much that is the shape that you'll see in the final product. I'm just going to go in now with the hobby knife, like I said before, and add some details. You don't have to do this. You could have just left it how it was before, and I think that would have been good. But adding small details doesn't hurt either. And this is what it looks like right before we get to the painting and sealing phase. But before we do that, let me use the hot glue to really get in some of these gaps that may be left over, where you don't want paint to drip into or look unsightly. So hot glue is actually great for that if it's not too big of a gap. Anyhow, what I'm going to use to seal this is a Mod Podge, as I always use, mixed with some tile grout, and you might as well mix in some cheap hobby paint. In this case, I'm using a gray. It doesn't matter what color you use. But really the key here is the Mod Podge mixed with the tile grout. The Mod Podge will seal it. The tile grout will give that sealing coat some texture. And then if you use some paint, why not? Next up, I'll use some small rocks and some ballast to add some texture just to the ground areas. The larger of the small rocks, I'll use hot glue because it's just faster again. But for the smaller rocks, the ballast, I'll use a thinned down version of the coat I was using before. I just added water, literally, until it's pretty thin. Apply it with a brush, and then just sprinkle on those small little rocks, again, the ballast on top of it. That'll keep it down. And then later on, I'll come in with some of that thinned down coat again over the rocks and some paint. That'll help everything settle down. Once that's dry, I'll come in with my FW inks. You know, I always use these. That was a sepia colored that I'm spraying through an airbrush here. And I try to get all the creases with this sepia colored, which is basically just brown. But it gives us a nice tone, especially with the gray that was there before. It's all about layering, no matter what you do. That goes for a simple rock base as well. After I'm done with the sepia, I'll come in with some FW black, same thing, and it works well. And then the last step here is a dry brush, or second to last step. I'm using a light gray, it was called cable knit gray, but again, something close to white, very light gray. Dry brush it. Already this is looking pretty good if you ask me. I want to do one last step though. I want to spray on or sprinkle on very, very watered down version of that cable knit gray, that light gray. I'm just flicking it on there off of a brush, add some more detail, and at the end of the day, that's what it looks like. Not bad for a simple basic diorama, rock diorama. We've got some nice textures if you zoom in here. Fairly realistic, and ultimately, Vader looks pretty good. This really does remind me of that scene from the Vader Kenobi fight. So I think we hit the target here, but tell me, what do you guys think? Should we add more detail, add less detail, or do you have any other methods we should use to make these rocks? Let me know in the comments. If you like this, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and stay crafted.